guitar lovers of the internet, my name is Ollie and it is my absolute pleasure to present to you the EVH 5150 Iconic 80 watt head in all of its glory. This has been a long-awaited, much anticipated release from EVH, probably one of the most anticipated amp releases in the past year or so. And let me tell you right now, it was absolutely worth the wait. The hype is very, very, very real. And EVH have delivered once again. And of course, an amp representing the legacy of the one and only Eddie Van Halen, we would expect no less. Right next to me, I've got the 5153 6L6 head. Both of these have 6L6 tubes in them, so I'm going to talk about what is the difference between the two amps. In terms of the sound, what are the finer details that differentiate them? We'll try and squeeze in a direct comparison separate video if I get time. So yeah, we're going to talk about what's the difference between the two. Can you justify, or why should you have both in the collection? Let me tell you, you can definitely justify it right now. So yeah, we're going to talk about a bit of background. We're going to talk about its features, and hell, it's one really, really great amplifier. Obviously, I like EVH, and this amp is no different. It's one great piece of gear. So yeah, let's dive right into it. Before we do though, if you enjoy the video, if you've enjoyed it so far, if you find yourself thinking, this is a bit of fun, I like this amp, I like how we're talking about it today, feel free to chuck us the thumbs up or even to hit subscribe. Believe me, even though it's just a click of the button, it does help. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about the amp. Designed in conjunction with James Brown, no, not the soul singer, the amp designer, who has been synonymous with many, many legendary high-gain amplifiers over the years, and this guy absolutely is one of them as well. First started teasing maybe 18 months ago, posted in an unrelated EVH photo. I think Wolfgang Van Halen, Eddie's son, may have posted a photo, or a photo was posted somewhere with this block letter amp in the background. By block letter, I of course mean a reference to, you know, the original PV amplifiers that were released back in the day. And based on the look, based on the size, this of course, you know, is paying homage to that iconic, literally, that's why it's called iconic, I guess, iconic design. So the features are a little bit different from the 5153. I'll go through and I'll demonstrate exactly what all the different controls do, and then I'll explain, you know, why it's different. So yeah, without any further ado, let's jump into it. So first main difference, we have a power level control right over here. Power level, this basically means we can run it at full, 80 watts of pure tube driven power, or we can chuck it down to 1/4, taking it down to 20 watts. So that's going to be handy if, you know, you're jamming at home, or you're just looking to crank it up at a lower volume and you really get the tubes driving. At the moment, I'm running it full power into a Boss WAZA tube amp expander, which is an attenuator, into a 412 cab sim, which is making it sound nice and nice and beefy. So yes, I should mention as well, this is a lovely Jackson MJ, made in Japan, DKR. We're hearing a Damasio Super Distortion pickup in the bridge, and yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that it sounds so great, but I digress. Moving on, we have a presence control. This is something that you'll also find on the 5153. This guy is cool because basically it allows you to sculpt the tone depending on what you're running into, what cab, what guitar is going into it. So I'll show you what it does. So think of that like a tone knob. So similar sort of thing. That's basically gonna dull it. So if you're using an overly bright cab, or if you're in a space where you need to, you know, bring it down a little bit, or brighten it, you can do that. Next is resonance. Now, a great feature on this amp is that resonance is on the front, whereas on the 5153, that's on the back. You've got to reach around, you've got to fiddle for it to find it. You can't exactly see where it's pointing. So on this amp, I'm glad that they have included that there. So resonance, if presence is your higher frequencies, resonance caters more to your lower frequencies. Pinch harmonics galore. Honestly, this amp is too much fun to play. Good luck taking it back from me. So, resonance. Low end frequencies. So if you're running into a 412 cab, you're probably going to want to dial that back a little bit because you've got a big boomy speaker enclosure. If you're running in, I don't know why you would be putting this into a 112 or something, but say you're running into a 212, like the one I have underneath the amp, you might want to bring the resonance up to give it a bit more low-end character. Global reverb. This is something that hasn't been included on the 51, 53, 50 heads in the past. I've got it added just a little bit at the moment. Obviously, if we crank it up, it's going to get a little bit messy. This is completely dry. So yeah, I like to have it on just a little bit to give us a bit of connection between the playing, if you will. Next up, we have a boost. This is controllable via the 2-button foot switch, which is included. You can't use the boost without the foot switch, and basically that's just going to allow us to have a controllable decibel boost, which is great if you're doing a rhythm on one channel, and then you just want to have a bit of a boost to put you above the mix. So say, for example, and of course the boost can be controlled, so you can have it super over the top, so I'll turn it off and then put it back on. You'll be able to hear when I put it on. And you can dial it right down as well. So that's great. Also handy if you're going to dial in a clean sound, which we'll get to a little bit later. So boost, we also have volume controls for 1 and 2 at the moment, because I have the benefit of using it with an attenuator. I've got them both at 4. I'm sure that will be more than loud enough, as it is with the 51, 53 models. Those guys really do take off. So yes, volume controls, and then we have a 3-band EQ, high, mid, and low. We all know what they do. Right now they're pointing at 12 o'clock. And I should mention as well, we're not using any boosts, we're not using any extra gain to push the amp. All you're hearing right now is straight up EVH Iconic tone. A noise gate. This is also a great feature because, surprise, surprise, super mega high freaky gain amp, a little bit noisy, especially considering I'm sitting right next to the thing at the moment. So I've got it cranked up all the way at the moment because I'm on channel 2 with the burn mode engaged, which we'll discuss in just a moment. So let's see what happens. I've got the volume up. Let's see what happens if I bring the noise gate down. You can hear it humming away nicely. So look, if you have it super gained up like this, you're not going to be able to do chuggy metalcore breakdowns. So if I doesn't cut it off super tight, like something like an ISP decimator or maybe an MXR SmartGate would. But you know, it's good. It's enough to keep it from being really loud. So crank that back up. So yes, that is handy. And now we can get on to the 2-channel controls. So there is a button to go between channel 1 and channel 2. Doesn't work if you've got the 2-button foot switch plugged in. So yes, at the moment the light is red, which means that it's on channel 2. If I hit the button, that'll take it to green, takes us to channel 1, which is not rocket science. So I'll demonstrate the burn setting quickly. To be honest, it's not something you can really hear finer details of. To me, it adds maybe a bit more harmonic saturation, just a little bit more gain, which is obviously going to help with leads. So at the moment it's on. Off. Back on. You could argue that channel 2 on an EVH amp doesn't really need a burn, it doesn't need more gain, but here we are. I'm probably going to keep it on most of the time when I'm playing this amp. So yes, that's channel 2, gain, lead, burn, whatever you want to do with it. Channel 2 has a bit more control. We can have overdrive or we can have clean, which similar to burn on channel 2 is accessible via a button. You can't change them using the foot switch though, so basically you got to set it and forget it in terms of walking away from the amp and playing a show, unless you want to be that guy that's walking over and making adjustments, which, you know, that's not rock and roll, is it? So yes, we'll start off in overdrive mode, so a bit more like channel 2 on the 5153 models, or the blue channel. Still a nice tight rhythm sound, great for rock and roll, maybe some old school metal. That is going to come up nicely if you put a little drive in front of it as well, just to tighten it up a little bit more. So we can of course crank up the gain a little bit more. So right there between channel 2 with the burn on and the overdrive on channel 1, I think we have two distinct, very usable tones for different playing situations, different styles. So yeah, now we can clean things up. Like I said, if you're doing a show or something, or if you're just jamming really, you're either going to be using channel 1 and 2 as clean and gain, or channel 1 as crunch, rhythm, and then even more gain. So the volume balance is a little bit off. So at the moment, if the settings are exactly the same. This was similar with the original 5153 models that didn't have the concentric volume controls, like my EL34 head here. So this is an original 5153, by the way, not the version 2. So yes, But do not fear, because say for example, if you jump from one channel to the other, you can use the boost to bring it back up again. Now obviously that's clean with the gain all the way up, so let's dial it back a bit. But we've lost all of our volume, so booster's already all the way up, so that's as clean as this amp is going to get, and as loud as it's going to get at that cleanness, without using any external boost or anything. It's not super clean, but to be honest, are we really buying an EVH amp for a clean sound? No. If you want a clean sound, buy a Fender Princeton or something like that, you know? Not what we're here for. What we're here for is... and we all know it. So yes, that's all the controls, that's the sounds. So again, we've got 2 channels, each with 2 different sounds, which you can access by pressing buttons. And the foot switch allows us to jump between those 2 channels and turn the boost on and off. On the back of the amplifier, we have controls for 4, 8, or 16 ohms in terms of the output, which is something that really attracted me to the EVH amps back in the day, having the flexibility to go between different cabinets. Not so often you're going to have 4 ohm cabinets, but 8 or 16, definitely more common. And last thing you want is an amplifier which can only go into either of them, because then you're basically stuck. Great feature. This amplifier does have an effects loop as well. With the 5153, you can turn the effects loop on and off via the foot switch. With this amplifier, no such button. It's basically when you plug it in, it's engaged. Not really such a problem, but hey, that's a feature. We have an emulated output on the back, which is accessible via, it's a Canon jack or an XLR jack on the back. That's an emulated cabinet output. To be honest, I haven't tested it. From memory, it wasn't that great on this. It's not a feature that I would use unless I absolutely had to. Say for example you're at a gig and your cab blows up, or there's no cab you can use for some reason. You can use that to go straight into the PA, you can use it to go straight into an interface as well. We also have a mute button to mute the power amp, which is great for silent recording if you're going to use the separate 1/4 inch or guitar cable output for the preamp out. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's basically all the controls for the back. In terms of the tubes themselves, these are both 6L6 tube amplifiers. They're a different kind of 6L6 tube, and they also have different numbers of preamp and power amp tubes, which is what I think leads to the difference in how the amps gain up, which is probably an important factor. If you're, like I said, if you've already got this guy, thinking, why am I going to get this guy? They're both the same tube amps, but they react differently. Different amount of gain stages because of the different number of tubes. I can't remember the exact amount of each preamp and power tubes, but you can find it on the internet, or I might pop it up on the screen. I find this amplifier here, it gains up a lot more in the sort of mid-high frequencies. That's where we get most of our saturation. Whereas this guy, especially when you've really got the gain cranked up on channel 2, it gets really thick in that lower mid sort of frequencies. I'd call it filthy, I'd call it disgusting, and really, really aggressive, but in all the right ways, especially if you're wanting to play some like sludgy, really heavy riffs. Perfect for that. But of course, you can have the gain not all the way up, and it's not going to be so aggressive. So if I bring that... So that's basically it. The EVH 5150 Iconic amp. Here it is in its 80 watt head version. You can also get it, this is black, you can get it in ivory. Also available is a 112 combo, which is 40 watts. So depending on what you're going for, if you're looking for something a head you can take from gig to gig, something that's a little bit bulky but has more power, or the 112, which is, you know, more portable. And of course you don't need a cab. They've got you covered with various different options. So yeah, I think that's basically it for this killer amplifier. So to highlight, or to conclude, no, it is not the same amplifier as the 5153 6L6. Different way that it responds to being gained up, different tones you can get out of it, and different features. We've got the built-in reverb, we've got the built-in noise gate for channel 2, and we've got the resonance control on the front instead of the back, which may seem like a small thing, but it's handy for on-the-fly adjustments for when you're sound checking or just trying to find tones in the studio. So yeah, thanks so much for hanging out today, guys. My name is Ollie, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.